6 News proudly presents Hope Over Violence.
Good evening and welcome to our special Hope Over Violence. I'm Sherry Jones.
And I'm Kiera Lake, and tonight's special takes an in-depth look at the solutions for ending gun violence.
And we're going to start tonight at the very beginning by talking about how one Mid-Michigan community is working to stop the violence before it starts.
Nate Salazar shows us how.
Sound of gunfire, red and blue lights, and police tape. It's all too common in Lansing. In just the last 2 months, there's been more than 20 non-fatal shootings, and police say most of them are not random.
12 of those non-fatal shootings stemmed from 3 different incidents, and that's what really got our attention this summer. I'm not comfortable saying that our non-fatal shootings are not related to each other.
Cycles of violence happening in our backyards. Police respond to these shootings, but how can we prevent them? City officials say they are taking measures to tackle this issue with organizations like Advance Peace, which work with at-risk individuals directly.
We are identifying and recruiting individuals who are at the center of gun violence in our community. That actually means that they are actively carrying weapons and engaged in firearm violence.
The organization works with potential offenders in an 18-month fellowship, providing life skills training, behavioral therapy, and peaceful conflict resolution.
We've engaged 19. We believe in our city we might have close to 100 individuals who are eligible to be a part of the Peacekeeper Fellowship, individuals who are carrying guns and shooting at individuals. And that number seems to be growing week to week, month to month.
Another worrying statistic, half of the current fellows are 17 or younger. The program is focusing on the southwest parts of the city, where 18-year-old Makai Williams was killed in February. A 13 and 17-year-old were charged with a murder in that case. Elam is noticing a pattern.
Southwest Lansing and youth who reside in that community are feuding with youth who live in other parts of the city. The goal is to expand the program and begin to engage with individuals that they're actually feuding with.
But when it comes to finding these at-risk individuals, the city has turned to religious leaders like Pastor Terrence J. King to use congregation as a means of observation.
Many of the families that are involved, whether they're involved on the side of the offender or the victim, are attending our churches or know someone who attends our church.
Pastor King is the chair of the Assembly of Lansing Pastors, a group that was formed in response to a rash of shootings back in 2021. Now they're a part of Lansing's Gun Violence Prevention Coalition to get to people that are just out of reach.
The congregants will come to this faith leader and share information that they may not be comfortable with sharing with anyone else. We can pull that together with places and organizations like Advance Peace.
Alongside worship, King is also in higher education. Many of the people involved in these shootings the same age as his students. He says there are faces behind these statistics, and by making the right connections, we could see less of those faces on the news.
These are tragic things that are happening that are impacting families very adversely. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort, it's going to take money, it's going to take resources, and it's going to take a huge commitment to do this.
Here for you in Lansing, Nate Salazar, 6 News.
Thank you, Nate. And it's not just pastors and nonprofits who are working to keep kids away from a life of violence. Kiera spoke with Ingham County Circuit Court Judge Rosemarie Aquilina about her plan to use the justice system to help keep our kids and the community safe.
Judge Aquilina, we appreciate you so much for being here. And you've been a judge for almost 20 years now, hearing from countless family members, specifically who have lost ones due to gun violence. That must be just one of the most heartbreaking parts of your job.
It really is, especially when I hear one mother telling the other mother, I'm sorry because today you lost a son, and one has a son in the ground and the other has a son going to prison. That is heartbreaking.
On the flip side, you're known as one of the tough, no-nonsense judges. And how frustrating is it for you to keep seeing cases like this over and over again?
It's really frustrating, especially when I know I can do something about it, the community can do something about it, and things are not being done the way I think they could be done. We have too many guns, too many violent acts, and there's an outcry for help, and I'm not sure things are getting done the way I would like to see them.
What are you seeing when it comes to the number of cases, like the type of weapons or even the ages of people committing this violence? Have you noticed any trends?
Absolutely. There's hardly a case that I have where there isn't a gun. But now I'm seeing everybody, doesn't matter the age, have not just one gun, but multiple guns, whole trunk loads of guns. And it doesn't matter the age. 13, 14, 15-year-olds have multiple guns. And they end up in front of me. Fortunately, oftentimes there's not a death, but there is some kind of harm.
You're mentioning what you're seeing firsthand, and our Hope Over Violence series is focusing on solutions to these problems that you're seeing. And you may have one. You'd like to establish a specialty weapons court. Now, could you talk about how that would work?
The weapons court will start with the juvenile program, and it will be a delayed sentence so that juveniles who are found with weapons who have not yet committed a heinous crime will really be deterred. There will be a rehabilitation, a retraining, and they'll get education. Maybe they'll have a medical reason that we need to get involved, or a mental health reason, education reason. We'll get parents involved, and we'll really look at what's the underlying reason. Why is this happening? Why do they feel they need a gun? Are they being bullied? Is there a safety issue? And we're going to look at a holistic approach. Can we turn this around now before it becomes deadly? And we're hoping the recidivism goes down and safety goes up. I don't know how else we do this except to retrain people for safety and come together as a community and say no more guns. We're going to give you another chance before it's deadly. How many more people have to be maimed? How many more people do we have to lose in our community? We have to do something. We need the community to say to young people and to everybody, you matter, we care about you. And that's what this court will do.
Well, we appreciate you as always, Judge Aquilina. Thank you so much for visiting us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. And when we come back, we'll tell you about the simple step that you can take to prevent gun violence and how 6 News can help.
Well, we continue to learn hard lessons about gun violence and gun safety because it's not just intentional shootings.
We continue to see accidental deaths happen right here in mid-Michigan, and experts say those tragedies can be prevented with a relatively simple solution.
Keep the gun where she can't find it.
He thinks I don't know where it is.
She doesn't
I know.
Public service announcements like this one from Project Child Safe speak a clear message about gun safety. The group stresses 3 phrases: own it, respect it, secure it. And if gun owners don't do that, the unthinkable can happen. In fact, this month, a Howell mother and father's lives were changed forever when their 2-year-old got a hold of an unsecured gun that accidentally went off, killing him. 10 years ago, the Easter family from Jackson experienced the same life-altering tragedy when their 3-year-old got a hold of his father's gun and it accidentally went off, killing him. Days after that, Mark Easter purchased a gun safe as a way to protect his family and prevent something like this from ever happening again.
You know, when I went to pay for it, I knew that $100 for the safe that it cost me, you know, I could have prevented my sons from dying, and that will haunt me. That's a cross that I got to bear.
The Easter and Howell families are not alone in their grief. According to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, children and teens are more likely to die because of guns than car crashes, drug overdoses, and cancer. Experts from the University of Michigan say the numbers are alarming.
I would absolutely call it a public health crisis. Firearms are now the leading cause of death for children in the United States.
Statistics published by the Gun Violence Archive show the number of gun-related deaths and injuries of children ages 0 to 11 from 2018 to 2022 increased by nearly 50%. That percentage was even higher when reviewing teens ages 12 to 17. That increased by 79%.
The evidence is just so clear that if we are storing firearms in the home and on our property safely, that we can reduce risk of injury and death in kids by 75 to 80%.
Experts from Project Child Safe agree, saying hiding a gun does not make a home safe, and instead they urge parents to think about gun storage before they even purchase a gun.
Accidents with firearms can be prevented, and it really just starts with secure storage. And, it's something that everyone needs to think about. They should probably do a gun storage check on a regular basis.
Experts say safe storage of guns and gun violence prevention bills, like the one signed into law this spring by Governor Whitmer, can make a significant difference in saving lives. The new laws also lower the cost of firearm safety devices to ensure owners can safely store their guns, keeping them away from children and out of the hands of criminals.
Especially people who own many types of firearms, because they are hunters or target shooters, should look at something that can accommodate all those firearms.
And here at 6 News, we're not just talking about fighting gun violence, we're doing something about it.
And that's right, because we partnered with police in Jackson to hand out free gun locks to people there, and we gave out more than 24 in just 2 hours.
Yes, so if you missed the Jackson event, there's still an opportunity to get a gun lock. Tomorrow we'll be joining forces with the Ingham County Sheriff's Office and handing them out right here at the TV station in Lansing. It starts at 11 a.m. and runs until 1 p.m. or while supplies last.
And when we come back, we're going to show you another reason gun locks are so important. We'll take an exclusive look into a local police department's gun vault and show you what they're up against. So that's all coming up with Hope Over Violence returns.
Welcome back. As you can imagine, gun violence is something local police departments need to deal with every day. So we're going to take an exclusive look inside the Lansing Police Department's gun vault.
We spoke with the chief and an evidence technician about the types of weapons officers are coming face to face with and what everyone at home can do to help fight gun violence.
To see all these locks locked, it was a bad night.
Zig Olds has been an evidence technician for the Lansing Police Department for 5 years now, and he sees and handles firearms on a daily basis. So far this year, LPD officers have seized more than 400 guns.
I came back to Lansing because I wanted to help the greater good. And come to find out, I get a job where I get to see the worst of the city. It's very depressing. But we feel as though we're doing something as we are taking them here as opposed to finding them out on the street. Once they're in our possession, they're not a harm to anybody.
As the years pass, Lansing Police Chief Ellery Soseby says his department is seeing a consistent and concerning rise in guns being taken off the streets, including modified fully automatic weapons to manufactured 3D printed guns.
Our milestone was 100 guns in 1 year, and now we're taking off 300, 400, 500 guns a year off the streets. Those are illegal guns. So you can see that trend is very alarming. Not only are our officers encountering these guns, but we're taking more reports of stolen guns.
And he says legal gun owners are not as cautious with storage as they should be, meaning they're leaving firearms in unlocked vehicles, at work, or not storing and locking them up properly at home.
What we want to do is make sure that when you have those weapons, that they're secure and put in a safe place so they don't fall in the wrong hands.
Would that make a dent?
Absolutely, because there's 100 and almost 20 guns in the city of Lansing right now that are in the wrong hands because they weren't locked up and stored appropriately.
We've had to get creative because we're running out of space.
This is where LPD stores its collected firearms, the gun vault. This room houses the smaller ones. Each box has a gun inside.
These pink circles represent guns that are involved in homicides.
Others in this room were collected for a variety of reasons, including it was stolen, the owner was not allowed to have one, or the gun was not registered properly. And over in this vault...
These are your rifles. These could be hunting guns. These could be the military-looking assault rifles.
This room is also scarce on space. During his time with the LPD, Olds has pretty much seen it all when it comes to firearms. But lately...
The feeling I get are that the guns are meant to impress, to have an aggressive look, maybe a tactical or military look, something that you may not have to shoot to intimidate somebody, to show off.
But sadly, many of these guns are being fired, and it's a trend Lansing police are noticing with more younger people as well. The department is actively trying to change that and is seeing progress on several fronts, but it needs help.
It's law enforcement, it's the court system, it's probation, it's the schools, it's the clergy, it's the parents, it's everything that all has to come together for that common goal to keep our kids safe, to keep weapons out of their hands, to combat violence in general.
Well, Lansing police say not only should legal gun owners have a lock or a safe, they should know where their firearm is at all times. And another tip, police say advertising on social media that you have a gun or by putting gun stickers on your home or car, you could be making yourself a target for gun thieves. Well, gun violence is often associated with bigger cities. So Kiera sat down with the mayors of Mid-Michigan's two biggest cities, Lansing's Mayor Andy Shore and Jackson's Daniel Mahoney, to talk about what's happening and what they're doing about it.
Well, Mayor Shore, Mayor Mahoney, thank you so much for joining us. Now, as the mayors of two of the biggest cities in our viewing area, how big of a problem would you say that the gun violence is in each of your towns, and where do you think you go about addressing it?
So in Jackson, I mean, public safety is probably one of the #1 issues that citizens talk about. And because Jackson's such a small community, anytime anything happens in the form of gun violence, it feels like it's always happening. It feels like a huge problem.
It's something that's on a lot of people's minds. When you, like Jackson, when you look at the data, you know, a lot of our numbers are down. Our homicides are down, are in half from the year before. Our violent crimes are down. But we had one very bad week a few weeks ago where we had three homicides. We had a mass shooting where 4 people got shot. That week, it didn't feel like it was getting any better. We have a 3-track attack on gun violence. Prevention. And for us, we have vast parks programs. We provide funding to non-city programs that do things with kids and youth, get people out of poverty, build wealth, all of that. That's prevention. We have intervention, which are our violence interrupters, and then we have to solve the crimes. We have justice.
We're seeing more young kids get their hand on these guns. What do you think needs to be done? Is there another effort or a different avenue you think can be taken?
Keeping someone from traveling down that life of crime in the first place. So when I think about that, I think about like what can we do to further people's education so they can have access to better and higher paying jobs so they don't have a reason to be stuck in that loop of the life of crime in the first place.
We've taken 80 illegal guns off the street just in the last 2 months. A vast majority of them are illegal.
And like you said, it involves parents, involves neighbors, community members. Where can they go to, if they're seeing a problem and they want to report it, what resources are available for them to report these things?
911, yeah. Most immediately, of course.
Right.
But I think that anybody who you feel most comfortable calling is who you should call, whether it be a council person, whether it be the police directly. The most important thing is to report it. Don't wait. You should be willing to speak up if you feel like there's an issue or a situation, because you literally could be saving somebody's life.
And this will continue to be an ongoing conversation, but I do appreciate you, Mayor Shore, Mayor Mahoney, for being here today and talking about this issue that I know is really important to the communities right now.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Kiera. When we come back, we're going to take another look and different angle on this problem. What victims of violence can do to get help. That's all coming up next on Hope Over Violence. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Well, gun violence doesn't just affect the person who is injured or killed by gunfire.
It takes a toll on their friends and families who have to deal with the emotional and mental scars that a shooting leaves behind.
So we want to talk about them and the help that's available to them to help cope with this type of trauma. March 20th, 2021, LaShonda Walker got a call letting her know that her 25-year-old daughter, Krishana Walker, had been shot in Jackson.
We got there to the scene and she was laying on the ground, and it was a freak out moment, just screaming, and I need to be near her.
Her youngest of 5 children was shot in the chest
by a woman that she had yelled at over not wanting her to hit her car.
Krishana was rushed to the hospital and was in surgery for about an hour before a doctor came out to let her know that she didn't make it.
It's just heartbreaking. It's something that you don't get over. It's something that you carry with you differently every day. Some days I think about Krishana. We call her Muff. That was her nickname. I think about her and I laugh and I have good memories and good thoughts. Some days I wake up and it's very different. It might be sad or angry. You have a million emotions carrying with you forever.
She had support from family and friends, but that wasn't enough.
A part of you is gone forever and you'll never get it back.
So she got professional help. I spoke to Jane Bidwell, a clinical social worker, about the difference professional help can make.
It's really important to recognize when somebody has experienced gun violence or any kind of violence to understand that it fractures families, it fractures relationships, and it fractures our soul, and there is no get out of trauma free card.
Jan says you may have nightmares or intrusive thoughts, but you don't want to avoid your painful feelings.
Because grief is never terrorizing. Trauma is terrorizing.
She recommends getting a therapist on a website like Psychology Today and finding someone you are comfortable with who is grounded in mindfulness.
When the danger's gone, it's really important to come and be with your breath, which we know stimulates the part of our body that can rest and digest.
All things LaShonda was able to learn after finding her therapist on BetterHelp. She was finally getting some relief after living with fear and anxiety by journaling, decorating, or just watching a movie.
It was so refreshing to really own and identify those triggers, know that, they're not going to go away overnight.
But LaShonda says this is something no parent should have to go through. She hopes parents, her community, and young people heading down the wrong path learn from this.
Step into their adulthood. Step up into, maturity. Stepping up into the person who you want to be. You don't want to be that person all looking at somebody's child laying on the ground and you did nothing. I would feel awful. I could never live with myself like that.
If you need resources on how to deal with your trauma or you're looking for a way to help your child, you can visit WLNS.com. Well, that concludes our month-long look at solutions into gun violence.
Thank you for joining us, and stay safe.